Hey, how you doing? Uncle Dan here, Sporty Drives in Colorado. Now, I've had a few people request that I do a video on Rev Matching. It's taken me a while to really think on this because of several factors, actually. One, I'm not so sure Rev Matching hasn't become obsolete. It's so hard to find a manual transmission in the USA anymore. Even race drivers are using the automatic clutch paddle shift. And then you have the problem of cars, modern cars having the computers, the ECUs. And I'll get into that here in a minute. When you do find a manual gearbox, you usually can't do proper rev matching just because of the car itself. As far as I know, this is the only model car that does it accurately now. The MX-5 Indy model, I would imagine the previous MX-5s also do it properly. Anyway, what's the point of rev matching? Well, if you're just going to get in your car and go somewhere and you don't give a crap, you poke around, you don't drive on the slick, rev matching really has no point except to save on the mechanics of the car. It's a lot easier on the transmission, the clutch, U-joints. Gives you a smoother ride. When you're driving on the slick, rev matching is really a must, if you know. And the reason is because it keeps it all smooth. There's no jerking around. There's no sudden braking of the drive wheels or acceleration of the drive wheels. It becomes just like driving an automatic. Pressure of the forward pressure or braking pressure, either one, is even from one gear to the next, and there's no sudden jolt or anything like that. That's pretty important around here with a lot of the snow and ice we have. But also for me, rev matching is the result of shifting without the clutch. My story is, my grandpa, my maternal grandfather, he taught me how to drive. Well, a lot of people did, but he taught me how to do the whole thing solo in a 1947 Chevy pickup. That was it was done in a hot rod style for the period. And it was his pride and joy. It was his gym. Anyway, he had me soloing when I was 8. But because, you know, the gearbox in the thing was not synchronized or anything, to start with, I had to come to a stop before I could go to a lower gear and start all over again. So, when he started teaching me how to downshift the thing, you know, which had to be double clutched, I couldn't really do it because I had to shift my hips around to reach the clutch and the gas pedal. I couldn't reach both at the same time as far as pushing them down. So he just taught me how to shift without the clutch by rev matching, of course. Now, when I talk about this, a lot of people just freak out and lose their mind, and all of a sudden they don't hear anything I say. If you're one of those people, this is not for you. Anyway, I assure you, he would have never done that if he would have thought I was going to tear up his precious pickup. And so for me, rev matching is highly associated with shifting without the clutch. In fact, if you can't shift without the clutch, your rev matching isn't accurate. When you can shift without the clutch, you know your rev matching is spot on. Now, again, you know, a lot of people aren't going to care about this, but if you're an enthusiast, you will care about it. What makes the modern cars so difficult to do actual rev matching with is because your accelerator pedal is no longer connected to the throttle. You don't get immediate and consistent response anymore because your accelerator pedal is hooked up to the computer. So when you mash the gas pedal or let off of it, you're sending a signal to the computer, and then the computer interprets what you're wanting it to do, and it sends the signal to the throttle. And as a result, most modern cars take a little bit of time before the engine revs up, and like I said, it's not consistent. So it doesn't do the same way every time, and that's pretty hard to control when it doesn't do the same thing every time you give it a command. And then once it revs up, they usually don't want to idle back down when you let off of it, and some of them will just scream. Anyway, like I said, this MX-5 is the first modern car I've seen in a few decades that's accurate, and you can hear it. It's spot on the same way every time. I love it. Mazda did a great job of getting their ECUs together. And so again, you know, it's probably obsolete information. Now, shifting without the clutch, I'm going to get into that here in a little bit, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, I don't do it in this car, and the reason is because the shift is so tight that you can't feel what you're doing, and you really have to jam the into the gear when using the clutch. You got to, and shifting without the clutch requires a soft touch, a gentle feel. You can't just go cramming into the gears. That's not how you do it. But a good lesson, a good way to learn some rev matching is you're driving along, say like I am here. You check your revs on your tachometer. We're doing 1.75 at what, 40 miles per hour. Then you go to another gear and you check, that's 2.25 or 2.2. Now you know how much to rev it up to go back and forth. So a good exercise is to find a deserted road, low traffic, so you can just concentrate on your shifting. Hold a steady speed and just go back and forth from one gear to another. And feel like your smoothness. When you feel like you're doing it smoothly, then you can start changing your speed up. A good beginner technique for rev matching is to rev the engine higher than the match. And then as the engine idles back down, you've released the clutch. As you go on and improve, you just get that closer and closer to being precisely on the match. Once you get the hang of it, you really don't have to know how many RPMs you run in what gear to do what speed. It just kind of comes natural. Anyway, I'm on the road. I've got videos of it. I'm just out here to have a good time on a Saturday sunrise. Doing the recon drive. Fortunately, there's not sand all over the road, so I've been able to concentrate on some talking. clutchless shifting thing. Again, it's not dangerous, it's not hard on your car if you do it right. And by doing it right, I don't mean, learning how to do it and being able to do it right. It's more of a matter of not being insistent on getting it into the gear you want if you miss it the first time. When you're shifting without the clutch, if it doesn't slide right in, then you try again or give it up. It's, like I said, it's not about cramming the thing into the gear or anything like that. And no, it isn't a thing of, your synchronizers are taking a beating or anything, because, you do this in a non-synchronized gearbox. Anyway, we'll leave the camera on for the drive up, I guess. It might be an interesting drive. quick little rundown on how to shift without the clutch. Now, I can do it in this car. I don't like to because the shift is so stiff, like I was saying. It's really tight. You can't, it's hard, makes it hard to feel when it's ready to go into gear. I'm sitting here, I just parked in first gear. Technically, we're Rev Match at the moment. The engine is at 0. The drive wheels, the rear end. I like to say the rear end because I hate front wheel drive. I don't do them. Anyway, both ends of the clutch are at 0 revs. It pops right out of gear. It'll go right back into gear. No grind, no shove. It feels just the same as it does with the clutch in. Try that with your machine. Now, we're in neutral. Neutral, the movement in neutral is, but if you'll notice, you can feel the little notches for where the gears run in. You can feel just a little hump, little opening. Now, when you're driving along and your revs match, it's like a little spring-loaded door opens up and it'll slide into gear. You have to complete the shift while the revs are matched. And that's why it takes kind of a finesse of a touch, a gentle touch and feel. Now, if it doesn't go into gear, you don't just force it. You give up. You just don't do it. You try again, whatever. But you don't force it. And that's the key. There's no grinding. There's no clicking. If that happens, then you are not shifting without the clutch, okay? Now, as far as doing the heel to toe, I don't know if you can see this, but I put my toes up on the brake pedal, and while you're braking, well, you have to hold the steady pressure on the brake pedal, and that enters my complaint about the pedals being too soft. It's kind of hard to do in this car. And you just twist your leg around where your heel goes up against the throttle, and you use your heel on the throttle. Some people do the opposite. They put their heel on the brake pedal and use their toes. Whatever you're comfortable with. As a matter of fact, that might depend on what car you're driving. Now, if you really want to get into the rev matching scene, and you can afford it, I suggest you go out and find yourself a $500 Datsun or something like that. An old car, preferably pre-ECU model. And just don't worry about it. Commute to work, whatever. Drive around, shift without the clutch until you get it down. Then get in your MX-5 or BMW, whatever. Let's see if I can give you a little example. Like I said, I don't like doing it in this car because it's not because the transmissions are delicate. That shouldn't matter. It's just that it's hard to feel when it's ready to go into gear. Now here we go. Let off the gas pedal, you put it in neutral at the same time. Otherwise, it won't want to do it because it'll be locked in gear. Then you rev it up, and when it's ready to go in, when your revs are matched, it'll slide right in there. See? Now, see, I missed it. There we go. It kind of clicked. Let's go back. See, like I said, it's hard to feel all this. But notice, I'm not being insistent on getting it in gear. I just gave up. I tried it a few times and then I gave up. And I missed it again. Again, the thing to do is you just give up on it. You don't force it in there. Otherwise, you are tearing up your transmission. I've had a couple of cars though that shifted so easy without the clutch that that's all I ever did. I never used the clutch. I had a Volvo. You could actually start from neutral and just put it in first and drive off without the clutch. It made me wonder why they even put a clutch in the car. If you're an enthusiast and you want to smooth out your drive, you want to be able to, you know, like come up to a curve like this, downshift in the middle of the curve, maybe there's even ice on the road, and you want to be able to just downshift anyway without worrying about the rear end stepping out or anything like that, then you really do want to get your rev matching down. And like I said, if you're an enthusiast, you'll be glad you did.